if you're ever putting one of these together, before you put it in the frame, don't forget to put this on, because it is an absolute pig to get to that screw if you forget. You can do it, but it's really, really hard to get it on there. Right, just a 45 engine strip down. It's already had the heads taken off, broken fin there. So we'll take all these out, get them out of the way. See what damage we've got. It's just stripping it down to assess it, to order our parts. So basically what I do is put the sprocket nut on there, so you can wind the engine over freely with a spanner. First thing to do, or what I do, is wind them over to the top. Let's get that one on the top. That's got quite a lot of play in it. If you can move it by hand and you can hear it knocking, yeah, that's too much play. Let's try the other one. Well, I can see just by looking down that it's too much, so I've got a big gap there, look. That'll give you what they call piston slap, so you'll never ever quieten that down. So that's either a rebore and new pistons. Right, that's got nasty scoring in that one, look. Feel them. So something's gone in there, either a busted piston ring or something's fallen down the plug hole and just wanged up and down and scratched the bore up, which you don't want. Right, so let's check that. So basically it's new pistons and a rebore. So then check your valves. Wind it over till each valve comes up. Start at this end I normally do. Well, that one's coming up, so alright, so it's full height. That's seriously broken.
Goodness me.
So that needs new guides and valves. If one's gone like that, there's no point in fannying around doing one or the other, just do the whole lot. Still got play in it, but not as bad. Not as bad. Check our inlet on that one. Not as bad, still got play in it. So what I've suggested to our customer is just get repro barrels and pistons that come, and then all you've got to buy is 4 valves.
Yeah.
You haven't got the expense of all the machining, fannying around, getting it rebored, honed and everything. It all comes new for probably cheaper than you can do all the engineering work on it.
Yeah.
So to me that's a no-brainer. Right, so we'll whip the barrels off. Big spanner. Okay, so that's our inlet manifold glands. Right, that's our inlet manifold out. Looks like the glands are okay. Right, tap it chest now.
Are there parts on the engine which is just worth changing regardless?
Obviously all of your gaskets. If you're doing a decoat, strip it all down. If you just get a valve worn or something, just change it as you go.
What's the worst engine you've seen taken to pieces? How bad was it that you can think of?
That, do you remember the Hudson Commodore we had ages ago? That, I've never seen a car so completely knackered in my life.
Really?
It had obviously been on a farm or something and they just kept driving it, and it was, every single part of it was knackered. Everything. I mean, anything moving on it was knackered. It was that bad. Right, let's get the generator out of the way.
If the head of the screw is knackered,
yeah,
how would you get the screw out?
I just drill them out. Drill out the centre of it, and then you've got enough stud left on the back casing to get some grips on and get it out.
Okay.
That's nice and tight. Normally they get quite, there's only a pin holds that on. Normally, see that pin there? It's just pushed through and hammered in. But that's, normally they're missing some spring loaded bits in there, so that's just an oil shield for the bearing. If you're ever putting one of these together, before you put it in the frame, don't forget to put this on, because it is an absolute pig to get to that screw if you forget. You can do it, but it's really hard to get it on there. So make sure you put your generator strap on before you put the engine in the bike. Just makes it easier to get to the bolts on the barrels then. We'll take the distributor out of the way at the moment as well, I think. So you've got your clip that holds that on, yeah?
Yeah.
Lever that out of there. So then that lets that loose, yeah? So all that does, sits up underneath. Those two there, that's spring loaded, see the shape of it? So you push that up in there and clip that on there and there.
Yeah.
And that holds the distributor head to the distributor base. Clamps it all in there nicely. And that will lift off. That's all nice and clean. Cleaned up. But basically, what Matt wants to do is paint it all himself, because it should be painted casings on this.
Okay.
So he wants me to strip it, assess it, and then he can take all the parts away that need parkerising, zinc plating, you know. Should be spring washers under those. Alright, that's good. Not too much up and down in it, and normally these pins wear out and you get play between there, the helical gear and that gear. So that's in quite good condition by the looks of it. Right, that's everything out of the way. We know that one's already been undone because it holds the advance and retard cable. Studs are coming out, so we can strip those. They should all be parkerised anyway. Been rebuilt in the bike, this, definitely.
How can you tell?
This bolt isn't done up, it's virtually impossible to get to it to get it properly tight. So it's been rebuilt with the barrels taken off in the bike. It's a common fault on them.
Would that cause a problem?
No, not really, it's just it's better to get everything as tight as it should be, you know, but you just can't get to that. You can, with they do in the original Harley toolkit, there's a funny bent spanner.
One that's specifically for things like
basically, to get to those, yeah. smell it's burning oil. Yeah. Right. Well, we know the valves are going to get changed anyway, so there's no point in stripping them at the moment. Right. See the dents in those? You can grind them off, which I've done before, but personally looking at them, just gets 4 new top nuts, you know?
Yeah.
Right. Right, there's no play in the small end on that one, which is good.
Where are you looking for play?
Where that rotates on your small, what they call a small end bearing, you have a big end, fat, small end at the top. So you check it for if you can move the piston left to right like that, rocking, or up and down at all, which is no movement in it, so that's good. Let's get the other barrel off. But there's a few years worth of carbon build up and crap in there, look. Yeah. See all the scoring down that barrel now.
Yeah.
That's not just a little mark, that's a big groove. So your piston rings can get stuck in those and snap and all sorts of things. So that one's added completely. See that there? Those lips.
Yeah.
That's where aluminium's rubbed off of this and got so hot it's stuck itself to the top of the piston.
Blimey.
And your rings will all be scored, and so it's marked all the way up through the top of the piston as well.
Yeah, you can see it.
So that's added. Oh, let's check our big end. Right, there's no play in either big end, which is good. So so far the crankshaft's looking good. What I do is I leave the pistons on there till I've got the crank out, yeah.
Okay.
And then any shit stops going in the bearings and all that then.
Yeah.
Right, so tap it and it blocks out. Because these are countersunk, when you take them out, countersunk star washer in there. Always make sure I get them out first, because otherwise you just lose them. You turn the block over and you just lose that little washer, yeah? You can get them, but it's just easier to take them out now. And you know where they are, yeah? Because you lift the block out, turn it over, and all of a sudden that little washer's on the floor.
Gone.
Gone forever. These sometimes can be really tight to get out. They do a special puller for them. Yeah, as you're doing these, just look for any damaged threads or anything. All of these seem okay. Just check it generally as you're going over it, you know.
How can you fix damaged threads?
What they call a helicoil. You can either have it welded, drill it and tap it.
Yeah.
I'll show you one in a minute. I had to do one on the gearbox casing.
So basically you fill it again and then re-cut it?
You can do that, yeah, or you get one of these, that, you drill it to a size bigger, then you tap your hole, so then you wind that into what you've just tapped, yeah, in there. So once it's locked in there and set, that's your new thread back to original size in the centre.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so basically you're just coming out one size, putting a new threaded piece in, and then that internal thread is then the thread of your original bolt.
Got it, yeah.
Yeah, good idea. Right, let's see if any of these will move. No, came the cry. So you've got, this is your breather system, because obviously as the pistons come down you get lower crankcase compression.
Okay.
So that's, they do what they call a fording kit, which is another tube that goes all the way up with another breather on it. So you want to get this out of the way. Quite often these are smudged up because the exhaust pipe sort of runs under it and under there, so the bolts get a bit damaged, the screws. So that just goes up through your casing. Oil levels down here somewhere, so as your pressure builds up it just lets the air come out down here.
Okay.
The compressor in the crankcase just comes out of there. And like I say, they do a fording kit, so if you want to go underwater with it, the air vents up the top.
Okay.
Right, just remove the oil pump. Right, so you've got two different oil pumps. That's your main oil pump. Yeah? Can't remember which way round it is. Oil in, oil out to the engine, and that's what they call a scavenge pump. So that picks the oil up from the bottom of the engine and pumps it back into the tank.
Okay.
So that's your feed in. That's your circular rotary pump in there. That pressurises the oil through the engine, falls into the bottom of the sump. Scavenge pump picks up the oil, sends it back to the tank. Obviously this shouldn't be chrome, these should be parkerised. Right, so basically that in there, see those two? There's a spring in the middle. Oil feeds inside your passageways, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And then when that turns with the engine on the back of your cam, that's your rear camshaft, cam lobe. So that turns, compresses the oil in the pump, flings it out through the engine. So very basic, but what you got in here, there, I don't think there's one in there. There's ball bearings and springs in there, and you set the height, not necessarily for flow rate, but trying to seal it back in. There's a ball bearing that makes you seal to stop the oil filling up the crankcase.
Okay.
And normally they're bollocks. That's the size of the ball bearing that's in there. So I've made that up on the end of a screwdriver, and you put valve grinding paste on it, put it down your hole, give it a grind, and it does the seat back in where the ball bearing sits.
Alright, so you actually made that tool for that specific purpose? Yeah,
and always put new ball bearings in, because if they just get stuck in one position and keep going up and down, they get a little ridge on them. It only takes like a thou, and that won't seal. Get rid of the oil pressure switch for the light on the dash. Notoriously crap. If you can, always get an original one if you can, not aftermarket. They do make some good aftermarket ones, but generally they leak out of there, they leak out of there, they leak everywhere. Let's take our outer casing off. Little things, that's got a 44 stamp there, look. So who knows what that means. On British bikes, a lot of them, the guy in the RiE who would have rebuilt it would have his own stamp number. Okay. So you find quite often on British bikes, they're all stamped up, each part stamped up with a number. But I'm not sure about that. It might mean it's a 1944 outer casing, but they generally didn't stamp anything.
So it can be a bit misleading then?
Oh yeah, there's all sorts of weird numbers you'll find on these. So there's our first indicator of trouble. That camshaft bush has come out of the casing, so that's probably seized on there. It will rotate because it's got a locating pin, but we may have to get new bushes. So let's have a look and see what's going on. Right, that's just an idler gear to drive the generator, yeah. Right, that should have a, see that groove? Mm-hmm. Should have a little wire circlip that goes on that to stop it doing that. So it's all added noise everywhere, all these bits that are missing, you know. Right, all your camshafts, these are your cams, yeah. They're all numbered up. So you've got working from the back towards the front. Number 1 there, look.
Okay.
Okay, so he's number 1. You've got little shim washers, they should have one on either side. So that hasn't got one. See, that one's got one on it, I think. Is that a shim washer? They should have one either side. I think they're 7/1000ths of an inch or something. I believe they have them either side, I'll have to double check. So that one's the bush that's bent. Or something's bent. Worn itself out. Let's see, the washer's all bent up. So something's wrong there. Yeah, this needs. See that bush, look? So I think we might be looking at rebushing this side of the crankcase.
There's far too much movement in there, really.
We can't, yeah, basically, yeah. Yeah, what you have to do is put it all together loosely without these in. Yeah, and then you can just get a screwdriver down and just wiggle the camshaft side to side, and you can feel what movement you've got on them.
Yeah.
Because the lobes don't look bad by the looks of it. No, they're not massively worn, but that's not good, those being like that. See, that's should just sliding fit, and it shouldn't be. They should not be coming out of there at all. So we'll have to check all of those when the crank's out. See that movement there? See that?
All right, yeah.
Well, there's again that crankcase is cracked there. See it? So that's your outer, that darker colour there. Yeah. That's your bearing race holder for your main crank bearing, and that's split it there through undue stress somewhere. So we're going to have to check all of these, see what's going on. Right, that's your main timing gear. That's your scavenge pump gear. Let's get all of those out of the way. I'll show you when you put it together. There's a way of setting up all those gears so when you push the casing on, everything's timed up. Because there's a scavenge on the scavenge pump. I'll show you in a minute. There, it's air timed. Okay. So it's a breather. It's a crankcase breather, but it has to be timed up properly, which is quite weird, but it does work. So can be quite a bitch to weld these. They would have had so much oil on them over the years. The oil actually eats into the aluminium, so every time you try and weld it, it just spits back on you. Ah, that's a pain in the arse. I'm going to get that out of there until we take the engine off of the stand. So, well, that's out of the way. So, right, let's get our rockers out now then. Right, if you're tapping those out from inside there, I was hitting it on that edge there. Yeah? Always make sure that the barrel is in it, not up there, because you can bend that otherwise.
Okay.
So you want the fullness of that in there to take up any stress damage. So we'll check all them when they're cleaned up. Another main thing that goes on these, they're roller followers that roll on your cam lobe. So as your cam lobe comes round, it pushes that up and down against the valve spring, yeah? Yeah. Normally, or they can, it's a little tiny bearing in there, they can wear out quite badly. Okay, so See it? See the play in it?
Alright, yeah.
So that's not good. If you set your tappet so when it falls off the bottom of the cam lobe, it makes another adjustment. You can't get it accurate with those like that. Again, too much play in that. Again, quite a lot of play in it. See, that's a different model. So somebody's either made that. See, that one's got the ridge around there.
Yeah.
That one hasn't got it. So that could just be a solid one somebody's made up without a bearing in it. Until you get it all apart, you can't tell. Right, let's get that engine off the casing, off the stand then. We can get the scavenge pump out. Right, that's your scavenge pump. And inside there should be a gauze. There's another form of filtration in there. But what it is, you have to time it up. See that mark there? A little tiny mark on the top.
Oh yeah.
So when it's, you push that in and you set all your timing gears up. I think you set it 5/16 of an inch off with those two lined up on there. And I think it's on the distributor drive, I can't remember. No, it'll be to the camshaft drive, the crankshaft drive on there. And you time them up so that when you put it in, see that slot there?
Mm-hmm.
That has to be lined up. And that gives you your crankcase breathing system.
Okay.
But that's quite critical, you have to get that right when you put them together. Okay, so we were happy there was no end float. It's probably too tight, to be honest with you, so we'll set all that up. It's easy when it's all cleaned off and everything, you just start putting it back together and shivving things up, you know. Right, these are your end float washers on each side of the crankshaft, yeah?
Yep.
So before I start cleaning everything out, I take it off of that side, put it in that casing. I know that's everything out of that side.
Yeah.
So we can get rid of that out of the way for the moment. And then it's literally clean everything, really clean. Get all the oil off of it and everything, and then you can assemble and check everything. See that?
Oh yeah.
The others don't look cracked at all, but obviously I'll clean it all.
Is it something you see quite regularly or not really?
I've never seen one that's cracked yet, so.
And that would be caused by the pressure and...
Something's locked up in there, or just stress in general, really. Okay, so 44/6400 on there. It's had water in the engine, see that there? That's water. Well, it's got 43 WLC, you've got 44 6400. I don't quite know how that tallies up, because 44 is normally the year the engine was made, but that's saying it's a 43. No, of course it will be. Of course it will be. All of them are numbered 43 WLC, every engine. Yeah, that's right. So it's 44 6400. So they're matching casings. That there, 1-3, or it could be I3. That's the month. That's your year. So that was cast, that piece, on say January 1943.
Yeah.
Or it could be later on, I'm not sure. I'll have to look all the numbers up again. 64 there, 64 there. So that was probably an engineer that built the engine.
Yeah.
That'll be his stamp number probably, I would have thought.
But matching casings is a good.
Oh
good
yeah,
start,
always
isn't it,
good, yeah. 64 there. So that's good. And the gearbox has got a date code on it as well, if I remember rightly. There you go, E1. So that's January, February, March, April. That's June 1941 that gearbox was built, I'd say. That's your end that goes in there. See that groove there? See how it sort of spirals down?
Yeah.
So that goes in there. Any oil that's going to come out of there, as the engine rotates in there, it forces the oil into that groove and spins the oil back into the engine. So that, basically, apart from cleaning, taking the studs out, taking all your bolts and bits out of it, doesn't need anything doing to it as such. You just give that a bloody good clean up.
And how do you clean this? Is just with petrol?
Yeah, just wash it down with petrol.
Okay. This side, however,
it's not a happy bunny. You shouldn't be able to push that out with your hand like that. It's miles too loose. How tight they are compared to that one which we just pushed out. But you'll probably find, probably with a new set of bushes, I'd put all new ones in that, to be honest with you, and a weld on it. It will tighten up enough to hold. It won't cause any problems with it running, like oil pressure and things like that. That won't make any difference at all. So what I try and do is get a bit of weld in there, a little bit on that face, set it all up flush on the milling machine, I can just face that off again. And again, try and get a little bit on there and a little bit on there. You're not going to get a lot on it, but all of these are worn, so I think we'll replace those. And that one stuck on the end of the camshaft isn't good either. When you're fitting them, see that groove there? Always put that to the top. So that'll go in there, so your oil can drip down into it and feed your cam bearings. It's got the pins stuck at some point. That's tried to rotate in that casing. And the line of that pin, you can see where it's marked the cam there, look. So what it's done, that was probably seized up at some point. You've managed to start it, it's jolted that round, pushed against that metal there, made that go out of round, jammed it into the crank, into the cam there. Right, so that's our long one, goes back through and feeds the oil pump. No excessive play in that, so that side's probably okay. Number two, when you put all these in, there's all marks on them you have to line up to get your cam timing right. That's nice. That's okay then. That's got too much in it, see? But it's number 3 that's bollocksed in the casing.
Yeah.
So that's obviously just, the whole cam will be wagging up and down like that. Okay, number 3's at it. Number 4, which had the cam, the bearing stuck on the end of it. No, I wouldn't say that's excessive, that one.
How much is too much?
I don't know, it's just a feel thing for me. Yeah, I know that's
a thou or two is okay, probably above that it starts to
probably
get...
a thou or two, yeah, after that it's all going to start wanging up and down too much. Yeah, so basically now just give it a bloody good clean up.
Replace the knackered parts?
Well, he wants to paint it all, so I need to replace those before he paints it,
yeah,
because you're just going to damage, smash the casings up, you know, and I need to weld it before he's painting it. So I'll give him a ring later and just tell him what the score is.
Yeah.
And take it from there.
Next week on the workshop.
Now it's getting it to run right. You'll never tune a 2-stroke properly with everything loose like that.
Why
It's leaking gases here, it's leaking gases at the barrel, and a 2-stroke, the whole purpose of the exhaust being that shape is wide to narrow. That's obviously forcing the exhaust gases out of that smaller hole, but as it does that, it sends a pulse wave back up the exhaust pipe into the cylinder barrel to clear out unwanted gases.